everyone. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Young, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast, and I have got to tell you, I'm super thrilled today to have Claude Silver on the phone. If you have seen her out in the world, she's absolutely brilliant in the people space, and she's also a member with me as part of the Human First Club, which is this movement that's taking the world by storm, where we want to be focusing more on how are we more human at work and in a more positive way. We know we're going to bring some of our brokenness, but how are we going to be making more positive impressions on those that we lead and that we work with? So welcome, Claude.
Thanks, Heather. It's great to be here. High five from New York City.
Woohoo! I love New York City. There's just something about it, right? It's romantic. It's kind of sexy.
It's sexy and it's fast and furious.
Oh yeah, right up your alley. So where are you right now? For those, I doubt anybody here doesn't know you, but if they don't, where are you right now in your leadership journey?
I am the Chief Heart Officer at Vayner Media, which is a full-service digital advertising agency. I'm in New York City right now, and that's where our headquarters is. I work for an incredible entrepreneur and businessman named Gary Vaynerchuk, which I think 98% of people listening will probably know who he is, and I'm able to scale him and scale our culture and our people initiatives on a daily basis here.
Boy, that's got to be exciting. I mean, I just can't even imagine the energy inside that place and the level of innovation and the license that you get to be, just to be that your best self for others and to help bring out the best in them. So I know it. Now, listen, I know no place is perfect. I know no environment is 100% foolproof, right? But I bet you it's just super exciting to be there in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We have warts just like anywhere else, but the fact that we acknowledge that and we also are going someplace. There's so much movement and momentum when you walk into the office. And, I was just talking to a guy who just left the room, and, what I do is have one-on-ones quite often throughout the day. And he said, I decided to leave my job in financial services because I really was so upset with the fact that I hated Mondays and I couldn't wait until we got to Friday. And he said, here, no one seems to be like that. Yeah. Wow.
That speaks volumes. Yeah, that speaks volumes. I mean, in the space of, a lot of the work that I do in employee engagement and loyalty and all that stuff, that's huge. I mean, that's a testimonial just in itself. You go to an interview and it's like, well, and you have no fear. Just here's a few of my coworkers. You can talk to them and get their opinion about what they like about working here and hearing it from them. That's just the best recruiting tool, right?
It's amazing. And he's only been here 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, there is that was a honeymoon period, but again, I know how you flow. And so I'm sure that it's just got to be such an open, refreshing environment. To be in a place that has very little, just think of like pulling the shades down, very little transparency, very little authenticity. And then you just scream it right out. And so I'm sure that's got to be something just, super awesome for those who are there.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. We work on it. We work on it every single day, but I think, 9 out of 10, we're definitely hitting it. If not out of the park, we're hitting it close to the fences back there.
So how do you think your people there, those that you directly lead mostly, how do you think they would define your leadership style? How would they actually describe it?
They would definitely describe it as kind and compassionate, empathetic and strong, and liberating, I think is the word.
Mm.
It's the sense I get, which would be the other way to say that is she is not a micromanager, is what they would say.
Yay!
Yeah.
I want to celebrate you right now with that because
She is not a micromanager. They would say she's absolutely here for us. So she's definitely a servant leader. Yeah.
I love that. The other day, I'm working on this book based upon this podcast, and I one of the things I wanted to do is I decided to reach out to people who I had they'd reported to me before in lots of different roles, and maybe in the end they had come to me, like they would email me and say, "Oh, I miss you so much. I miss having you here. Oh, I really wish you're here." And then I went to them. I said, "I'm curious. Can you tell me specifically why? Like, I really want to know why, not just like, great, you're wonderful. I need to know specifically why."
Yeah.
And it was all of the things that you kind of just described. It's just, you went to bat for somebody. One of them called me fierce because I stood my ground on one particular topic, and they were so impressed from a distance to watch me stand my ground. And the ground that I stood was for the employees. And so some of the stuff that just the words I use, I'm like, that's why I do the work I do. Believe me, I'm not an accountant for a reason. I wouldn't be doing that work, but but it was just it's really uplifting to see. And it didn't have anything to do with money. It wasn't about perks. It was just, giving my heart to them and really standing up for them. And that's the stuff I know you talk about and you live, as well.
Yeah. I get the honor every single day of working for 800 people. And I really mean that. I am honored to be their Sherpa and guiding them through whatever it is, because, I do feel like you can throw any type of pitch at me and I will be able to catch it in many different times, probably because I've lived long enough and I've been with people long enough. And I also have had my own road, that nothing is going to crush me necessarily when I'm here at work. I'm here for them. I'm here to hold space, to be of service, and to take action. That's really, really important to me, because when someone's coming to me, for instance, the gentleman that was just with me here, we were checking in. He reached out. He's a new hire. Of course, I'm checking to see how he's doing. But what I said is, hey, I'm going to introduce you to 10 people here who I just think are going to be phenomenal to have coffee with. Why? Because I want you to understand and get a sense of why and what they feel the texture of our culture is here. And I'm going to pick 10 randos. They're not my top 10. They're not, 10 all-stars. I'm going to pick 10 random people for him to meet. That's me taking action. I want to make sure that he is really getting a really good sense of what and who we are, because we're not like the average bear. We're not like the average agency. And these 10 people are going to give him, different metaphors and vibrations and words to fit to what they believe Vayner Media is all about.
Oh, I love that. I love that kind of almost informal, ambassador and then someone at your level kind of doing that, making those introductions. That right there helps to set him up, since he's only been there for a few weeks, for success, because now he feels connected. And as you know, like, people having those connections at work, those friendships at work, is a huge reason why people stay. So you doing that is just and then you probably weren't doing it for that. You weren't thinking of that. I'm sure you just like, I just want to make sure I do well by this guy. Right. Yeah. But in the end, that's the net effect, is that you have just more solidified his stay with you, which is awesome.
Absolutely. I'm here for him.
So, well, you're wonderful. You're just fabulous. Love you. And I'm sure everybody else that out there does. But, here's the thing. As leaders, we're not perfect. It's a journey. It can be awfully bumpy sometimes. Is there ever been a time, or can you share a specific story when you were not that best leader that you are today? And what did you do to come out of that?
So I have a very specific story, and it was an example, a poor example of who I am. And I publicly fought with, I'm going to put fought with in quotations, another member of the C-suite in public. And we had much more than a debate. And what was happening is I chose to be a human being in that moment, fallible and warts and, emotional and all of that rather than a leader.
Mm.
And my job is to hold space for every single person here, albeit Gary. That's the one person I can go to and kind of dump if I need to. But I'm here to also set an example. And getting into a fight, more than a disagreement, it wasn't yelling, but it was not cool. With another leader here was not the way I want to show up every single day. So what I did immediately was I cooled off for a second. I got my team together later on that afternoon, and I let them know that that was my fault. The fact of the matter is I need to act much more like a parent at Vayner Media and when I'm at work. And anything that I am having a hard time with needs to go behind closed doors. And that conversation is one that did not need to be aired, and it certainly did not need to be aired in public. And, it was something that I could have stopped at any moment and just said, you know what? The parents are going to go have this conversation in the bedroom rather than in the bedroom. And I think it was also, I'm going to use the word, frightening is a big word, but I think it was shocking to the people around that is where I could go because they don't see me like that. Now, it wasn't shocking that that's where the other person chose to go because we know that to be that person.
Oh, yeah.
His character. But it's so not my character. And I just felt really, I was human. I was on the back. I felt like I was on my back feet. And so it was a few years ago. And funny enough, he and I are very, very good friends now. But we needed that moment, and I needed to then go apologize to him and say, hey, I was out of line. He didn't say he was out of line, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yes.
But for me, one of the biggest value, one of my, I would say my top 3 values is accountability. And I had to immediately then go be accountable for who I showed up to, who I had showed up as, and who I know I am.
Wow. That takes quite a bit of emotional intelligence, quite a bit of humility to go the route you did. And one of the things that you did say, which I'm going to come back to, is that you chose to be human, kind of raw instead of a leader. And one of the things that I think that we do, a little too often is expect our leaders to be perfect and to have these shields that will really shield us from imperfection. And I think I don't think it's the right way to be thinking about leadership, because I actually think that in that moment where you showed your humanity, and then of course you backed out, you didn't continue to go down the road, you backed out, you went ahead and had the conversation, you chose to be that more humble person. In doing that, and hopefully you circle back around with the people that saw it, that witnessed it, to say, listen, I was not my best self at that point. Yeah. In that moment where you went to the colleague, you went to your people, that's where the richness was, because it's in our brokenness that we have the connection as humans, right? And so I feel like we need to be okay with saying, I'm not saying we're going to go do this all the time every day to be like, yes, I'm going to show my humanness every single day. I'm going to be so transparent, and I'm going to put all the dirty laundry out there. That's probably not the right way. But I think that it's almost debilitating to have to think of being that perfect shell all the time. Mm-hmm. And if you can know that you will have a certain amount of grace and forgiveness from those around you when you're not perfect, I kind of feel like it makes it easier for us as those who are leading people.
Yeah, I agree. I did use the word human for a reason, but by no means am I a perfect leader or a perfect human. And so I think in the moment of challenge or weakness or vulnerability is the strength. That is the key, I think, and the taking the accountability and coming to terms with the fact that I too have bad days. I too have really uncomfortable moments. I too am, dumbfounded sometimes and shell shocked, and I get up and I go to bat again. That's the thing. It's rinse. What is it? Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. But that is.
It is. I almost feel like there's just so much, we lose so many opportunities to see the beauty in that brokenness. Like I feel like what you just described, the reason why I asked that question to every guest is I think it's the beauty of seeing you come out of it. Like, okay, I've got lots of different dimensions, and I made a choice that revealed this one dimension, and it exists. It's underneath the surface, maybe not in a big way, and it's not part of my value system, but it exists. And then there's this other side of me who says, I'm going to self-correct. I'm going to have the tough conversation. I'm going to admit and be accountable. I think it's just in all of that. It's just, I don't know. I'm always, to me, that's where I'm most inspired by leaders like you. It's in that moment where I'm more inspired. And I think that, to be honest, and I think back to those people that I went to, and I asked them, like, what was it that why are you you're emailing me or you're texting me or whatever, saying, I was such a great manager. You just loved me. And why? And I can tell you that in every single one of those situations, I screwed up. I screwed up with each one of those people. I can remember specific examples of when I did, but it was in that weakness that I went back to him and said, I'm sorry. Like like what you just said, I have a tendency to do that. And I said, I should not have bared that dirty laundry or told you that this thing happened with this other leader in the organization. I should not have done that. That was my fault. And I apologize for being that leader who, maybe in that moment just didn't make the right choice. And I think it boils down to that. Yes. Is why they were like, wow. And I'm sure that's got to be you. I mean, it's just, when you speak out in the world, I can see that you have that about you. You're not shameful about it. It's just a part of who we are.
No, and thank you very much for saying that. I am who I am. It's what you see is what you get. And the most wonderful thing and most generous thing that life is bringing me right now is an opportunity to share what I've learned along the way, to share my DNA, to share what comes to me naturally. Now, just like you, don't get me into a financial institution. Don't get me behind an Excel spreadsheet. Because then, I don't know if I would feel like life was being generous to me because I suck. But I'm very, very fortunate to be in a position where I'm able to share beliefs and point of views and connect with people such as yourself and Mike and Humans First Club. So they're like-minded people, but we're adding to, the minestrone soup. Each of us has a different ingredients to add.
Oh, that's so true.
Makes it more delicious, right?
Oh, it really does. Yeah. I'm like thinking through that. One of the things that I know happens is that leaders often get stuck. They get disconnected from their teams. What do you do to reconnect in your team when you are all over the place, or they are all over the place, like they're doing big projects, which happens all the time, and you just feel disconnected? What do you do to reconnect with your teams in a deeper way?
So anything from ordering lunch together, from something as simple as that. Today I had an all-team meeting. I had everyone together and call in from other offices. We did a team dinner. I'll do little groupings of, rather than one-on-ones, I'll do two-on-ones. So I can talk to people. But for me, that reconnection and the communication is what is needed in those moments. It's not, it's not going bowling necessarily. It's connecting as human beings and letting them know where I am, where I have been, why maybe I haven't shared this bit of information until today, whatever it is. But, connection for me is the end all be all, the beginning, middle, and end, which creates trust. And with trust, I do feel that anything is possible. I feel like we can now start to let down our guard and let each other in and become fallible and show our warts and become vulnerable with connection and trust. So things that I feel like will aid and increase the level of trust and connection. And sometimes that is even like asking someone to get involved in a project with me. Say, you know what, I'm going to tackle this challenge right now. either I'll select them or who wants to help me with the strategy right now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I want to let them in. I want to share.
That's great. Well, okay. So for those leaders who might be struggling right now in their leadership, basically they could just be at a crossroads and need to be trying to, how do you move past it? What might just be some pearls of wisdom you might leave for them? Something that might get them through this rest of this week?
Well, listening. I mean, I don't know if a leader can be a leader without the ability to listen and to really actively, truly listen with no agenda. I think that can be really hard. So I would highly suggest listening. I would suggest asking open-ended questions so that you can glean what that person really has to say rather than a yes or no question. And I would, I use the term holding space quite a bit. And so that's really being with that person non-judgmentally, really being radically real, being radically human, being radically transparent and vulnerable and grateful, I think goes a very long way. So I would deploy as much EQ as you possibly could to get back on that horse, if you fall off. And that also means like saying thank you, making sure that person feels recognized by you, whether or not that's anything from a high five, an email, a wink, whatever it is. So those are the things, just at first blush, those are the things I would think. I mean, but listening is everything.
Well, I think, I agree with you that listening is everything at an individual level and at an organizational level. And I think too, just how simple you kept it, how simple you kept the response. This doesn't have to sound philosophical. It doesn't have to be some big, huge concept, right? These things that appear little to most are so massive to those who are receiving it, right?
Oh my gosh. Intention is everything. Size doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I recognize someone with a high five or, in the grand scheme of things, a high five or I buy them a salad, like recognizing them. Also the millennial generation right now, which is phenomenal generation. They're so purpose driven and they're so fast and smart and, hungry. They are going to change the world. They're looking for acknowledgement in a way that my Gen X, like we didn't, if we did look for an acknowledgement, we sure as heck didn't say it out loud.
Yeah, they do. They want things and they request things. They're more vocal. I mean, it's one of those things I think they may find millennials to be irritating, but in the end, I think there's a level of jealousy there because there's a courage that exists inside that base, right?
Oh yeah. When the kids come, and I'm calling them kids and they're in their early, but when they're coming to me and they're even explaining and expressing the fact that they have anxiety or they're suffering with a mental health issue, like that takes a lot of courage. To not suffer in silence takes an enormous amount of courage for these people here and quite frankly for anyone. So I want to applaud anyone that is making that very vulnerable, honest choice to move from a dark place or a shameful place into a place that is, we hope, more liberating in some way, shape, or form.
That gave me the chills. This has really been awesome. I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I'm sure people listening would not be hurt by that as well. But this has been amazing. I'm sure hopefully everybody's listening in and got some really great nuggets here. And you can also pull Claude's contact information from the show notes as well. When you go ahead and look at the website, you'll see that there. So this has been amazing, Claude. I really, really appreciate you doing this conversation and sharing all of the great nuggets. And I'm sure the people who are listening can just feel your sincerity and the strength that you have as a leader. And of course, your vulnerability to share when you weren't perfect. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you, Heather. And thank you to your wonderful audience. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.